My name is Matt Zeller. I am the co-founder of No One Left Behind. I'm an Afghan war veteran. I served also in the Central Intelligence Agency, where I sat on the Afghan desk. The tragic and cowardly suicide attack of 26 August proves the futility of trusting security of anybody, Americans, Afghans, to the Taliban. We never should have let them be responsible for the security at the airport. We never should have let them dictate the terms of this evacuation, and we certainly should never let them dictate the date upon which it would end. Because let's be clear, by allowing them to have control of those key factors, we are ending this evacuation before we are actually taking everyone who needs to be saved. By the estimation of the organization, the Association of Wartime Allies, the U.S. is on pace to leave behind some 175,000 people. Our coalition has been pleading with the administration since February to begin the evacuation of these people. We argued that it should have occurred months ago when we still had U.S. troops in place in the country, when the government of Afghanistan still stood firmly and we held every single airport in the country. If we had conducted this back then when we first requested it, it would have been orderly. You would not have seen the chaos that has unfolded. And I have to be honest, I don't think we would have seen that type of suicide attack. The people who perpetrated that attack were ISIS Khorasan. These individuals had been mostly rounded up in Afghanistan by the previous government and were actually being held in prison. When the Taliban took Bagram and Kabul within the last 2 weeks, the first thing they did was release all of those prisoners. So one has to wonder, given that the Taliban were the ones who freed ISIS prisoners within the last week, I question just how much the Taliban senior leadership actually knew about this attack before it happened, and whether or not, if they did know about it and they didn't do anything to stop it, how complicit then are they in the deaths of American Marines? The only reason I'm alive talking to you today is because my Afghan interpreter, Janice, saved my life in a battle. He killed 2 Taliban fighters who were about to kill me. He'd be the first person to tell you that he wouldn't have been standing next to me that day if he thought that Americans were people who didn't honor and keep their promises. That's my fear in all this. We have now betrayed hundreds of thousands of Afghans publicly to a global audience. Unlike Vietnam, everyone has been watching this unfold live on TV in real time, and the videos that are being captured are going to exist forever on the internet. They're going to circulate forever. They're going to follow Americans wherever we go abroad forever. And this is the thing that most concerns me is I don't know how we are ever going to be able to look people in the eye in the future and say, you can work with us, we'll take care of you, and have anyone believe us when the evidence is clear. We seem to abandon people in their time of need. At least our government does, not the American people. So for the people who are being left behind in Afghanistan, try to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine if you woke up tomorrow and all sports were banned. They were illegal. All music, all art, the things that make our culture vibrant and exciting and wonderful, banned, illegal. That's what Afghans are waking up to. Afghan women have no more place in public life. They can't leave the home without the escort of a male relative. They've been fired from all of their jobs because women can't work under the Taliban. This is the reality that all of those Afghans that we served with, who believed in our joint mission, who worked together shoulder to shoulder for the last 20 years, trying to build a better Afghanistan. That dream is dead. The nightmare is now their new reality, and we have abandoned them to that. The betrayal is absolute and fundamental, and it's going to be something that will haunt me for the rest of my life. And I, not to say that I speak for the greater veteran community on this, but I have to tell you, every veteran I know feels the same way. We're now going to carry a moral injury that will never abate, a scar that will never disappear. We'll do everything we possibly can to get them out, which is why I keep saying that while the American government might be ending its evacuation and betraying these people, the American people, the veterans, the diplomats, the aid workers who worked with these Afghans and befriended them over the course of the last 20 years, for us, this is just the beginning of a very long process and a very long mission. So what you've seen on the television right now has been what we call phase one. It's actually been the easiest part of this operation. It's the part in which the global community was united, in which we had charter flights and military flights flying in Afghanistan, desperately trying to, pick up anybody who we could load onto those planes. That effort is coming to an end. It's over. The far more difficult effort, the one that's actually going to rescue the majority of these people, what we're calling the Underground Railroad, phase two, that begins now. It's going to take years. We're going to have to try to open up additional air bridges, convince the Taliban government to allow us to send in additional flights, be them charter or military flights, into not just Kabul, but other cities' airports. And that's something that it's going to take, diplomacy to achieve, and likely years. We're also going to try to convince them to allow us to open up what we call ground humanitarian corridors. So these would be convoys that would be protected either by the United Nations or perhaps the Turkish or Qatari military, since the Taliban seems more comfortable dealing with them, where we would load up people into buses in a preset location, say the soccer stadium in Kabul. Everyone go to the soccer stadium, get on a bus, have the Turkish military escort all of those buses to Pakistan. They get off in Pakistan and they register as refugees seeking asylum. This is going to be an effort that will also likely require clandestine, operations. I already know of at least several privately funded operations that are currently ongoing that are utilizing helicopters and planes to fly secretly into parts of Afghanistan and pick up people at prearranged landing sites. We're going to need every bit of help that people can muster, because the vast majority of the people who have been saved so far, the government's tracking around 105,000 people have been evacuated. They got to the airport. They got out because of this digital Dunkirk movement. It's a movement of veterans, diplomats, aid workers, anybody who served in Afghanistan or had a family member who did over the last 20 years and now feels compelled to help these people. We've been working nonstop, basically since the days before Kabul fell, to try to get as many of these people on flights and out of the country as possible. I know of, at this point, tens of thousands of Afghans who only are alive today because some volunteer within this ad hoc movement that just sprung up globally amongst veterans and aid workers and diplomats and their families to save these people. They're the ones that have helped get people to safe houses, get the people from safe houses onto the airport, and then get them manifested onto flights to safety. They're going to be the individuals going forward who now help people inside Afghanistan hide from the Taliban, move secretly from place to place, and ideally and eventually extract them from the hell that we've now abandoned them to.